Okay, welcome. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you fine.
Alrighty. So, welcome everybody who is listening to this on both replay and now. I am Elizabeth Green, and I hope this message finds you alive, alert, awake, and enthusiastic about life and living. Um, I Today we're coming on and doing our session, my interview with Donna Threadgill, who is a parent of an Indigo. Today's interview, we're focusing on effective parenting skills for Indigo. And I forgot to introduce myself. I am Elizabeth Green, the founder of the Indigo Institute of Nevada, where I work with all of you highly sensitive, natural born leaders, which I refer to as indigos, live their best life now. And I'm doing these shows to give you tips, strategies, and resources that will help you live your best life now. And I'm focusing in on my new book, Building Spiritual Muscle, where I talk about my journey and also my experience both as a parent and teacher in working with indigos. So, Donna, thank you for coming on.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome.
And Donna, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and where you reside right now?
Well, as Elizabeth has mentioned, I am Donna Threadgill, and I live in Annapolis, Maryland, and I have three children and a husband.
Well,
So,
okay. Now, Donna is one of the people who I got to pre read the book because Donna and I started discussing indigos, oh, I would say almost about 10, 15 years ago when she was running into a problem with her daughter and was really throwing her hands up and didn't know what to do. Can you tell us a little bit about your experience, Donna?
yeah, it started with my daughter when she was very young, very young. She was spirited, she was different. We had two sons earlier. They were just normal boys, not a problem. And then she's 6 years younger than our youngest son. If, as my husband said, if we'd had her first, we wouldn't have had any more children because she was absolutely different from the start. So we sort of put it off. It's a girl, but I'm a girl, and I thought, I don't remember me being quite like this. You could see little things about her. She was, she's a loving child, always has been, still is to this day, and she's 29 now. But she couldn't do anything without being obsessive about it. If I remember a case in particular where I had bought her all these little colorful bracelets because she liked jewelry. So I bought her the bracelets and I thought she could wear one with the color that she's wearing for the day. But when I gave them to her, it must have been 12, and she had all 12 on her arm. She wouldn't pick one. She had to have it all. So that's the first sign. She had to have everything. It was nothing or all. There was no happy medium. She was never satisfied with just one thing. She couldn't pick and choose. And then as she approached school age, about 4 or 5, then my husband was working with her, and he's trying to do a traditional way of teaching her. He's going to sit down and read a book to her and have her read back to him. She never did that. She wouldn't sit down to read a book or look at it. So what I started to do was I played videos and audio tapes for her. So if it was a book that I wanted her to be interested in and read, then I had it on audio and I would play it in the car when we were driving along. And she knew everything about the book. She could recite it to you. So then you introduce the book and just let her know this is what the tape has been saying. And you had to treat her that way. If you went in with the book first, she wasn't going to be receptive to it. So that's the second thing.
And let me stop you there just for our audience, the people who are listening. One of the traits, now I taught special education learning disabilities, and I started teaching just as the largest wave of indigos were coming in. And I realized that many of the parents experienced the same frustration that you did because their child wasn't learning in traditional with traditional methods. Many of them threw their hands up and thought that something was wrong with their child. But as you just described, your daughter was very intelligent. She just learned differently. Go ahead and tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, and at that time, nobody really said that. It was just in working with her, I saw that I could not get through to her the same way that I did with her brothers. So instead of being resistant to it, I sort of learned how to work along with what she had to do. And as time went on and she got into first and second grade, I noticed her report card and she could read, but she couldn't spell. So her reading came back as an A and her spelling came back as a C. And to me, I'm thinking if you can read, then you can spell. I don't understand what the disconnect is. And as questioning the teachers about it, then they weren't able to help. So I went to the outside and found a teacher, a tutor for her. And the tutor did math and English with her. And when the English tutor came in, when she first worked with her, and Michael had gotten her hooked on phonics because everybody learns phonetically. And she said she won't learn phonetically because she can't hear the sounds. She doesn't hear it. So she has to learn by memory. So she's quick, and once she sees it, she knows it. And I taught her that way with the spelling. We just memorized it. And she could remember the words and then she could write it. But if you asked her to do it phonetically, she was lost. She put the letters were there, but they were all out of place.
Okay.
So
And you may remember, Donna, I talk about in the book that I did not learn how to phonetics until I actually had to teach it. I learned by sight. It wasn't that I sounded out a word. My granddaughter, even now, will say, Nana, what is that word? And I have to sort of sort through my I guess my storehouse to get it because I do not hear it. And so that is a very, very common trait of indigos. Go ahead.
okay, so we go a little further. She's doing fine with the tutor, but as we get into middle school, then the math gets more complicated. So we had to try to find out what to do. And I found a school in this area. It was called Bridges. And Bridges, well, first I went to a psychologist and to the psychiatrist because I thought, what is wrong? She's she's very active. She's just like nothing I've ever seen before. So I didn't want her to get worse. And her behavior was she lose her temper really fast and she learned quickly. So I just decided I'd take her to a psychiatrist because I thought, well, maybe she's crazy. But when I said crazy, he said, no, she's not crazy. So they did a lot of work, a lot of testing. And what they found was she was dyslexic, slightly dyslexic. So along with that, they had to teach her how to learn in case she was ever in a situation where the teacher did not know how to work with her. So Bridges was a school that we took her to. They did a lot of activities, they did a lot of work with her, and the director of that particular school had said, and I thought this was always a mistake when I was dealing with my husband, because he said, I see this trait a lot when I am dealing. He did a lot of therapy in the prison system. And he said when he tested her, and she was in middle school, she tested off the college chart. So he said she's extremely intelligent. She learns quickly, but she's not old enough to reason. And that's where he thought there was a disconnect. There were a lot of very highly intelligent people, but because they didn't have reasoning skills, that's how they ended up getting into trouble. And that's what he saw when he was doing testing. So I didn't want to go down that road. I didn't want her, but you could see it. She could come up with elaborate things, all kinds of things. But when you ask her the question, well, yeah, but if you do that, what's going to happen? I mean, what's going to happen after you do this? That's what she didn't get. Well, I
Yeah.
can do it, but what consequences am I going to suffer for doing this? What's going to happen in the meantime?
Yeah. And I think asking that why is a real important question for indigos. And if they don't get the answer, then they're very stubborn. They're not going to move any further. And because they will not sit down or recognize authority, if they see it, because they have this inborn um, intuition that's working. And so they're not going to accept, hey, that's the principle. If I see something going wrong, I'm not going to say anything to the principal. I don't care if this is my grandma or some person of authority. If they see something, they will speak up. And I think that's why a lot of indigos have run into problems, because people term it as a behavior problem opposed to their natural way of dealing with the world.
And that's true because she would tell me, she was always, I thought she would always be an attorney because she was for justice. If she saw anything that was not right, she had the ability to bring people together. She would hear one
Mhm.
side of the story, she would get the other side, and she'd work to get people together if they were having any kind of difference of opinion. And she does not tolerate injustice at all. And she would tell you that. When I let her ride the bus, I'm at the school because she's involved with the student and the bus driver. I'm like, what do you have to do with this? And she's because the bus driver called this person out on it and it wasn't that person. And they didn't have the right to do that. If you're going to do that, then you have to reprimand the correct person, and she wasn't. So she gets involved. Anything that was happening and she saw it, she always had to get involved in it. And always the teachers will call me in, you know, she brought it to our attention and is very strong the way she brings it to your attention. She
Mhm.
doesn't mix words at all. She comes right out and she goes for it. So there is no filter in the way that she approaches things. And that's the difference in us. Earlier, you had asked if I thought I was an indigo or a lighthouse. And I see
A light
myself a light worker because I'm Annapolis, so I'm thinking lighthouse. I'm
worker.
because I see injustices also, but I do take my time to process it and try to do it so that it does not hurt anyone in the process. She sees it, she says it, and whatever happens, happens. And they either take it or they're extremely hurt because she has just told them flat out what she thinks. So I try to get her to be a little easier about the things that she says, but that's not what she's here for. And that, after reading about the indigo, let me know that she's here to serve a purpose. And that's the personality that they have been given so that they can do this particular job. We came along as light workers to try to size up everything and try to work peacefully, trying to resolve issues. When we didn't, and that book said, and when we can't do it, when we couldn't do it, then that's why the Indigos came, because the Indigos are more of enforcers. They come in, they see the problems, and they take and get it taken care of. And that's exactly what it is. We both, I can see I can see what she sees, but our approaches are different. And she processes extremely fast. So it may take me a while to notice what is coming at the end. She sees it immediately and she can see the ending immediately. So she jumps right into action. It's like, okay. But now I sort of go with, if that's her gut feeling, then I let her go. I let her do what she needs to do. But we have gotten it under control because she had to realize what was happening to her. And once I found out about the light workers in the Indigos, I was able to let her read the books so that she would get to understand what is going on, what's happening to her, that she's not crazy and she's not out here by herself. There are other people like her. So we didn't have to do any kind of drugs. We went that route when I thought she was crazy. We went through all of that.
Uh-huh.
And it really didn't work. So it was taking her out of the element of the world to give her a chance to be in herself, away from all of the distractions that we have now, the phones, the TV, the movies, her friends, and everything. And we ended up sending her way out in the middle of nowhere with nothing to a school where they worked with them. And she was not the only one, it was a lot of them like that. And
Mm-hmm.
they had to teach them how to work within this society and not drive themselves crazy, because they were the first people before you. No, really, it was around the same time, because I think when I started to talk to you about it, I understood it more, so that when this opportunity to put her in this school came about, I was accepting of it. And that's the key, I think, that most people don't accept the fact that their children are different and they want them to be just like everyone else, and they are not. And for you not to accept the fact that they are different, and you have to go out and find how they need to be dealt with, not stifled, not their growth or their energy or the spirit killed, but how do we get them to fit in so that they can be themselves and do what they were put here to do? Because that's what we're all here for. And I can admit that when I was in school, I didn't know I was different from everyone too. And I can see that now, that I really was not like everyone else. They knew I was not like them. And now it doesn't bother me at all. It didn't bother me then either, but now I know exactly what was going on and why I experienced the things that I experienced when I was in school. And I think because I knew that I was different, and I had people telling me all the time, "You're crazy," and I'm just go away or be quiet. If we're in a group, don't say this, don't do that, because you alienate everybody. You just break up the whole group when you come into it. And so I knew how I was, and I can put myself in check most of the time. But I can only do it for a while, because if I hear or see something that's totally unacceptable, then I have to say something about it. And if people really look around them and see that there are people like that, don't just think that they're crazy, or, they're Looney Tunes, or, oh, something's wrong with them, so leave them alone. It's not that. We all have different personalities and we all handle things differently, and we're supposed to. And I remember that there was one thing that we were taught in one of the sessions, we were taught about the four basic personalities
Mm-hmm.
and broken up into quadrants. So it was, they divided the earth into four parts, and it was more of a communication. It was a conversation that we had to have with everyone. And where I tell you what I see, then the next person is telling the group what they see, and the third person tells what they see, and the fourth tells what they see. Well, we weren't seeing the same thing because we were coming from different places, but it was happening. We just happened to be in different places. And to say that that's not happening is something that you have to get past. You have to understand that we all work together, but we all see things differently. So we have to accept what each other sees so that we can work as a group and get things done. And I
Yeah.
thought that was the best way to present it to people.
Yeah, well, that is, you're talking about the four personality types where there is the thinker, the leader, the creative person, and the person who wants everybody to be happy and just go along, you know. And we all have our place in, especially when I was talking about it in the workplace, we all have our place, but understanding that it is okay to approach it differently is the key. And it's also key for indigos to understand that nothing's wrong with them, that, and for parents to be um accepting of that, because I think that one of the things that I saw that I am really passionate at, at urging parents to not just accept the teacher's point of view or other people's point of view of their child, that usually they're very highly intelligent, like you said, off of the chart, but it is because they process information differently. And for any of you who have indigos, I urge you to demand that the school system provides your child with the appropriate way that they need to work with, or appropriate um, techniques to make sure that they are processing those basic skills the right way, because too often it can affect their self-esteem, and that's why they end up in the prison. Because hey, and especially if they're males, I would prefer for you to think I am a bully and a roughhouser opposed to dumb. So I think that it is critical to not only for you as the parent to be um, always open to new ways of approaching it, but also to let your child know that there's nothing wrong with them. Boy, I think I should have made this a little bit longer. I said that the taping was only going to be about 20-25 minutes, but as we get to talking about it, there is so much information. And all of you who this is ringing a bell, make sure that you check out the book. I'll give my commercial at the end. But I think that I highlighted really well in building spiritual muscle about the effective ways of working with indigos. And Donna, I want to share just a quick tidbit from the book. When working with indigos, there are some guidelines that you want to use and keep in mind, regardless of the age. You want to respect them and respect their ideas. Just because their ideas are different than yours, you do not want to turn them off. You want to offer them choices, okay? Because if you use guilt, fear or hate as a controlling tool, you will find that they will rebel. And this second point here, practice unconditional love for them. One of the things when I'm working with parent groups and they're disciplining a indigo, I always emphasize that they need to say to the child, I will always love you, but I don't like this behavior. And this is why I am telling you this or that, but you want to separate the two, that it is not you're talking about them, but you're talking about the behavior. And don't talk down to them, as Donna said. Hey, they don't care. If you're the principal, the president, they will let you know if they feel that somehow or other you are acting out of integrity. And be consistent. I One of my things with working with indigos that I have found really critical is whoops, I lost the thought. Really critical with indigos is to give them structure and consistency. You know, you can't one day tell them something and then not do anything about it the next day. And I really, it makes the hair on the back of my neck stand up when I'm introduced to a child and people say, oh, and they're bouncing off the wall and they're saying, oh, they're an indigo. No, they are undisciplined. You, as a parent, need to provide a structure that is consistent so that they will learn how to work in this plane. But approaching almost 30 minutes. Anything else that you want to say, Donna, that you think is critical for people who are parenting indigos to be aware of?
Well, when you mention the school system, then they will put plans in place for the child so that it can learn the best way. It If it means moving to the front of the classroom, having everything written out for them, if it's getting the test audio version or somebody reading the test to them instead of them having to read it for themselves. They make all kinds of plans for the way your child has to learn and the way that the content of the class has to be taught to them. And it's a federal law. So
Correct.
to tell you that they can't do that, don't accept it. You keep pushing it and getting it to work for the way your child needs it to work. You know, everybody needs a fair share of this public education, even private. Private will work with them, public will also. So fight for it.
I'm glad you said that because I just had a parent who was told that they were going to have to spend X number of dollars to have their child tested, and that they were going to have to foot that bill to do the assessment, the educational assessment. It is federal law in all states demanded. If your child is not experiencing the success or progress that is expected, do not allow them to say, well, your child is dumb. They probably just learn differently, and it is up to the school system. It is federal law for them to provide both the testing and the education that they need, all the tools, even if the school system has to pick them up and move them to a different school in order to provide it. But your child does deserve it, and fight for it. And if you have any questions on this, please get back in touch with me. Like I said, it is my passion, it is my purpose to help not only in the indigo, the child, but also you as parents who are working with them to make sure that they are successful. Because as Donna said, they come here for a reason, and to drug them out, okay, and that should be the very last resort. Have them do exercise if they're hyperactive, because a lot of the school systems have cut out physical education and recess. And these children who are absorbing all of this energy, we didn't get a chance to talk about that. I guess we'll have to do another show of how you need to really allow them to get rid of the energy and physical exercise. Have them come home and actually go outside and do some jumping, do some running before you sit them back down to do homework or something else. So I'm looking at the time, and I had said that I wanted to keep these uh, down to a short period, but I think that this was a very important um, message that needed to get out. I thank you so much, Donna, for coming on with me. Again, I am Elizabeth Green. You can find me at K Elizabeth Green. I'll put all of my contact information above the video, both here when it's posted on YouTube and on Facebook. Um, Donna, is there anything else that you would like to say before I close out?
Oh, you were mentioning the exercises. Watch their food too. Watch all the chemicals that are added to the food that you're feeding them. Try to keep it as natural as possible. Don't give them a lot of sugar and a lot of candies or any processed food. Try to cook it yourself if you possibly can. That's
I'm
about it.
glad you, yeah. I'm glad that you mentioned that. I'm going to have on tomorrow um, Monica Bickerson, who's going to be talking about health. I believe on Friday also I have Karen Campbell, who is going to be talking about the importance of nutrition when you're working, be you young or old. Indigo, it makes a difference as far as how you are able to process information. So, Donna, I thank you very much. I am going to end with my favorite poem, which is Don't Quit. And it goes this way: when things go wrong, as they sometimes will, when the road you're trudging seems all uphill, when the funds are low and the debts are high, and you want to smile, but you have to sigh, when care is pressing you down a bit, rest if you must, but don't you quit. For life is queer with its twists and turns, as every one of us will someday learn. And many a failure turn about that might have won if they'd stuck it out. Success is just failure turned inside out, the silver tint of the cloud of doubt. And you never know how close you are. You may be near when it seems so far. So stick to the fight when your heart is hit. It's when things seem worse that you must not quit. Do not quit on your children. Know that if you keep on pushing, and I'm here to help you, um, they will be successful and they will be productive if you just keep focused on the fact that don't quit. So may light, love, and plenty of laughter follow you on the path. Until next time, I am Elizabeth, and thank you so much, Donna, for coming on with me.
Thank you.